Hello, I'm Esther Githu. It's Wednesday, February 9th. This is Africa 54.
A Nigeria radio program highlights cases of gender-based violence. Why is Kenya sitting out the Winter Olympics in Beijing? We'll explain. And Senegal's victorious soccer team returns home to a hero's welcome.
We begin in Nigeria, where a radio program is helping break through conservative cultural barriers by highlighting cases of gender-based violence. Timothy Obiezu reports from Jos, Nigeria.
Fatima, who does not want her real name used, is a rape victim. She's also wearing a mask to protect her identity. Fatima was on her way home from evening prayer in April 2020 when she was assaulted by two armed men.
They had a gun to my head and a knife to my throat as they took me into the building. They raped me and they kept taking turns while they were stabbing me during the act.
At first, she was too afraid to report the incident to the authorities. Her rapists threatened to kill her if she told anyone. But like many residents in Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria, every Thursday evening, she listens to a radio show where victims of gender-based violence talk about their ordeals. Fatima eventually broke the silence.
The case has been in court and it's been dragging. I need your help to be able to push through with the case. I want justice.
Nanji Nadang is the host of Silent Voices, a show on the local JFM radio station. Nadang says the program reaches 100,000 listeners every week.
When they're telling me their problem, they feel like this is a safe space. Times I go emotional on the show. There are times I go blank because when you hear some cases, you wonder if we have normal human beings again on earth, because some people behave like monsters and it's really disturbing.
To help victims get justice, Nadang works with the International Federation of Women Lawyers, or FIDA. The non-profit offers free legal representation to victims who report cases on the radio show. But FIDA's representative in Plateau State says getting justice for victims is not easy.
So much bottlenecks. So somehow we encounter some delays. But you know, our presence also gives us a lot of breakthrough. You know, there are cases that ordinary people would report to the police and they are not being given the necessary attention. But the moment they call on FIDA for FIDA's intervention, the moment we appear, the police will hasten the process.
While Fatima's rapists have yet to be convicted, FIDA will be monitoring the case. Meanwhile, the radio program will continue to help the victims of gender-based violence.
Share your story with me via Silent Voices with nanji@gmail.com and tell me whatever sexual and gender-based violence issue or human rights violation you are facing.
Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria.
Nigerian local authorities are cracking down on illegal oil refining in the country's rich Delta region amid concerns it's contributing to rising pollution. Angela Okomadu has more.
The black water in Grace Ekang's mop bucket is a sign of the soot she says increasingly invades her home in Nigeria's Port Harcourt. And the civil servant fears the pollution is spreading not just on her floors, but also in her body.
We have chest pain, headache, and if we sneeze, it's worse. You put it in a white tank, you find it's actually black. You know, so it's been a challenge to us.
Ekang and other residents blame deteriorating air quality on illegal makeshift refineries scattered across the oil-rich Niger Delta. Local authorities have started a crackdown. But with unemployment high in the Delta, oil remains an attractive business. Abubakar Zakaria is carrying a jerrycan of illegally refined crude to sell.
We don't have any something.
We don't have anything else that we can use to sustain ourselves. If we did, we would have stopped.
We go stop.
Illegal refining involves tapping crude from a maze of pipelines owned by oil majors. It is then burned at high temperatures in makeshift tanks. The illicit and hazardous process adds another layer of pollution in an area that has frequently suffered oil spills. Over decades, farmlands, creeks, and lagoons have been destroyed. Only last week, an oil vessel storing up to 60,000 barrels of crude exploded, adding to the spills. Samuel Onwanosike is chairman of Ikwere local government area in Port Harcourt. On a recent raid, he said 128 out of 142 illegal refining sites identified by authorities in the area have been destroyed since January.
And we will continue to destroy until all illegal refinery sites in our communities are destroyed completely.
Heavy machinery was used to break apart storage drums. Tankers were set ablaze.
The entire crude in the environment pours in the site pours into the environment.
But Fine-Face Dumnamini, executive director at Advocacy for Artisanal Refinery Project, says such methods are adding to the problem.
They are polluting the environment even more than the youth we are doing.
Some environmental groups say the way to end the illegal industry is for the government to fund small refineries. These, they argue, would be cheaper and simple to run and could also create jobs.
Angela Okumadu of Reuters filed that report. The International Court of Justice in The Hague is deciding Wednesday if Uganda should pay over $11 billion in reparations to the Democratic Republic of Congo for its role in conflicts in Congo's Ituri province. The ICJ, the United Nations highest court, mediates disputes between the states. The ICJ ruled in 2005 that Uganda had violated international law by occupying parts of the eastern Congolese province with its own troops and supporting other armed groups during a war that continued from 1998 to 2003. The court ordered the African neighbors to negotiate reparations, but in 2015, Congo returned to the tribunal, saying the talks were not progressing. The parties are now seeking a final decision on the amount of compensation. Libyan interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid al-Dibeiba announced during a televised speech Tuesday that he will defy a planned vote in parliament to replace him on Thursday, raising the prospect of two rival governments running in parallel. Dibeiba says the International Government of National Unity that he heads remains valid despite the collapse in December of a planned election process. He has rejected moves by parliament to take control of it. At stake is a UN-backed peace process, including a ceasefire with rival armed forces that has held since summer 2020. French President Emmanuel Macron says there is an opportunity to de-escalate the crisis on the Ukraine-Russian border. His comment came after meetings with the Ukrainian and Russian presidents. Henry Ridgel has more.
The Russian military build-up around Ukraine continues unabated. 6 Russian warships headed to the Black Sea from the Mediterranean Tuesday. Moscow has deployed over 100,000 troops along its border with Ukraine and a further 20,000 in neighbouring Belarus. It is the backdrop for several days of intense diplomacy. French President Emmanuel Macron held talks with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev Tuesday, a day after his visit to Moscow. Key to ending the crisis, according to Macron, is the implementation of the Minsk Agreements, a roadmap aimed at ending the conflict between Russian-backed rebels and government forces in eastern Ukraine.
The Minsk Agreements are also the best protection of the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Based on the commitment of the two sides, Russian and Ukrainian, we now have the possibility of advancing negotiations.
Zelensky agreed there was an opportunity, but said Russian President Vladimir Putin must prove his commitment.
Generally, I don't quite trust words. That's why I think that every politician can show his or her openness by concrete deeds.
The Minsk Agreements would see the eastern Donbass region, currently under the control of pro-Russian rebels, reintegrated into Ukraine, but with political autonomy.
Moscow sees Minsk as a way of re-establishing some form of presence within Ukraine for its pro-Russian forces and stopping Ukraine from formal NATO membership. Ukraine, for exactly the same reasons, opposes it.
There are concerns in Ukraine over what President Macron may have offered Russia.
The Ukrainians are very suspicious that behind it all, Russia simply wants to give the separatists in the Donbass a veto over any future constitutional arrangement in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians are suspicious that Macron might try and force them to give that away.
That explains why Ukraine is trying to calm the situation, says Titov.
There is a lot of talk in Kiev and Ukraine more generally about the whole crisis being kind of exaggerated in order to force Ukraine to actually implement the Minsk Agreements as a way of kind of calming down Putin down.
Despite those suspicions, analysts say Macron has kept diplomatic channels open.
By coming to Moscow and sitting with Putin and giving Putin, if you like, almost the lead in the negotiations, that's exactly what the Russian president really craves for.
Whether that will be enough to avert conflict remains to be seen. European diplomatic efforts continue next week when German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is due to visit Moscow for talks with President Putin. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
World Mobile is on a mission to connect Zanzibar, a semi-autonomous island off the coast of Tanzania, online through a mobile network built on blockchain technology, making the internet available to the entire population of 1.5 million people. The company announced recently that it had completed the reservation of its 1,000 Earth nodes blockchain network to connect the Tanzanian islands of Zanzibar and Pemba. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho spoke to Mickey Watkins, the World Mobile Group CEO and founder, in Barcelona, Spain.
Mickey Watkins, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much, Paul. Nice to be with you.
You are on a mission to connect the world. You have come up with this technology that is trying to connect the unconnected. Maybe let's start there.
We recognize, like many others, that half the world is unconnected. So you have around 3.5 billion people that actually don't have any connectivity or access to connectivity at all. This leads to bad healthcare, bad education, poverty, and a loss of many opportunities that you would have if you're online. Technology is matured enough. There's a convergence between mindset, and I think that we can do this. And I looked deeper into the subject, and I saw actually Facebook, Microsoft, Google, a lot of big companies were recognizing the need to connect the unconnected. So the reason we chose Africa is because it's the most unconnected continent with the most amount of potential of people that really need connectivity right now. The demand is the highest. As a business, it made sense to go to Africa. But as a humanitarian global development, it definitely makes sense to provide a solution that connects the world. Our solution is a solution for the now and that is sustainable and that can be deployed. So Zanzibar works, it's the rest of the world. But we're already in negotiations with over 18 different countries. Our team is traveling to West Africa in the next couple of days. Now we're here today, ready to launch our first dynamic network, a hybrid network made up of balloons in the sky, tethered to the ground, and mesh network on the grounds. And this is happening in Zanzibar.
It's remarkable that in a very short time, you've been able to do so much on the ground. Why Zanzibar, of all places?
Tanzania is very close to our heart. Two of the co-founders of World Mobile have lived there and have resided there. It's a beautiful place where around 19 million people are unconnected. And then we looked at Zanzibar and said, okay, this looks like a perfect place to launch a mini version of the big network. And if we can get it to work in Zanzibar with the aerostat, the balloon in the sky, and the mesh network on the ground, we can literally take this model, pick it up, copy and paste, and bring it into Tanzania and into Kenya. Now, as I said, in the next 6 months, we'll be launching the first mobile network that is hybrid of this kind.
How reliable are those balloons? I've seen some criticism where they say balloons are not reliable, but you're saying this is the best solution for a place like Zanzibar, Kenya, and maybe to the larger extent, the whole of Africa.
When we talk about balloons, we're talking about something specifically called aerostats. Aerostats are balloons that are tethered to the ground. So they go up 300 meters to 1,000 meters. At 300 meters, you have around a 71-kilometer radius of viewing angle. Each aerostat can connect around 100,000 people on the first version, and you can launch 20, 30 aerostats in one country. And it's a perfect solution, which costs around 10 times less than the existing mobile network operators.
Speaking about mobile network operators in the country, there are so many of them. How are you going to be able to compete with, quote-unquote, the big boys?
Good question. So there's 1,000 mobile network operators in the world, maybe a little bit more. They cover the connection for around 4.5 billion people. There are 0 mobile network operators for the unconnected because they're still unconnected. So we're not competing with them. We're going where they can't go.
I'm a fan of a saying that says that if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. What's the catch? What's in it for you guys?
For us as a company, it's a problem worth solving, right? So we bring something different. And we're not the big tech companies that are Google or Microsoft or Facebook. So we're very agile. And we've managed to collect a fantastic team of people who want to change the world.
You're trying to bring in new technology, for example, blockchain technology. How are you able to do that?
This is a great question. So Wi-Fi hotspots, as an example, have existed throughout Africa for a long time. Let's talk about the continent. But there's no pickup. Why is there no pickup? There's no pickup because just being able to connect to the internet alone, when you cannot identify yourself, limits you again. So the first reason to bring in blockchain was that we looked in was for digital identity. So we can enable millions of people to bridge the digital divide and gain economic freedom themselves. So once you have an identity, you can then go on to being banked. Once you're being banked, you then have opportunities that you wouldn't have had before. Borrowing money, insurance, all types of things. Well, this will actually put the unconnected on a better foundation of privacy than we've ever had ourselves.
Thank you so much for your time, Mickey.
Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been an excellent to be on the show.
Thank you.
That was Africa 54's tech correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking to Mickey Watkins, the CEO and founder of the World Mobile Group. Still to come, Senegal's national football team bags swag after winning AFCON. But first, Heidi Adams tells us about a special edition of Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome to this Town Hall edition of Straight Talk Africa. Join me, Heidi Adams, on a Voice of America Town Hall special as we discuss the coronavirus pandemic. Where will it take us next? We'll hear from global experts and from our audiences across the African continent on the challenges and opportunities as we navigate life during COVID-19, the virus, variants, and vaccines. All that on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Kenya is sitting out the Winter Olympics in Beijing after the country's hopefuls either failed to qualify or pulled out of the games due to lack of financial support. The ice hockey team did not have a place to train after East Africa's only ice rink shut down in 2020 because of the pandemic. Brenda Mulinya reports from Nairobi.
Kenya's ice hockey team, the Ice Lions, hasn't trained on ice for the last 2 years. The players say that's a key reason they're not at the Beijing Winter Olympics representing Kenya. Hassan Ali has been playing ice hockey for almost 7 years now.
My teammates, they kind of feel sad because most of us wanted to be there to represent our country, Kenya.
The Ice Lions have not had access to the region's only ice rink since it was closed in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. The government ordered the suspension of all sporting activities and the closure of entertainment venues. But even before that happened, a lack of financial support made it difficult to train properly.
The facility we are using is commercial, so you have to pay for the facility to train. And most of the athletes at the same time cannot afford to pay for it.
Kenya's National Olympic Organizing Committee, also known as NOC, is responsible for coordinating Kenya's international sporting events. Committee officials admit that a lack of funding has made it difficult for Kenya to participate at these Winter Games. Kenya took part in the 2018 Winter Olympics and had hoped to send 3 individual athletes and the hockey team to this year's event. NOC's Secretary General says the cost of supporting teams at the Winter Olympics is prohibitive for a tropical country like Kenya, but suggested that may change.
We've also engaged our Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage, and they have also agreed with that there should be a little bit more focus on the winter sports, so that even if we are not going to be competitive for podium finish, the fact that Kenya will be represented and that our flag will be flown in such an important international event, that will be good for us.
The ice hockey team is hoping the ice rink will reopen soon so they can resume training and keep their Olympic hopes alive for the 2026 Winter Games. Brenda Molinya for VOA News, Nairobi, Kenya.
Antonio Rüdiger is a Sierra Leonean German football legend. He was recently appointed as a brand global football ambassador by Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio. Rüdiger plays for the Chelsea Football Club in England and for the German national team. In part 2 of his Skype interview with VOA's Peter Clotty, he explains why he got involved in the mask campaign to protect people against COVID-19.
In Europe, COVID hit very hard, and you just hear people are dying and stuff like this. And then, yeah, you think back, my parents are there, and not only my parents, just the whole population. For me, I just thought, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not, this is not my area, but you just hear people are dying. So I was afraid that something like Ebola is, like coming again and stuff like this. And so I said, like, if there's any chance I can help, yeah, that was my motivation.
So where do you see your foundation in Sierra Leone within the next 5 years?
At the end of the day, like, you never know what happens, because at the end of the day, like, my personal goal, what we want to achieve is definitely to improve in lots of aspects. Education is more like, it takes a long time, to be honest. That's not from today to tomorrow. But what I want to really achieve very early is the structure, like in the infrastructure. There I want to go, because that's obviously that's what people see. Because we all know you're African too, so the African man believes in what he sees.
That's right. That's right. So when you interacted with the children in Sierra Leone, you even went to watch a soccer match where some of the disabled were playing. What was your message to them? Because as you said, you could see the love, you could see the passion. What was your message to them?
Oh, my message to them is that, at the end of the day, they think maybe nobody sees them, but that's what I wanted to confirm to them. There's actually people who care about them. This was my message.
So with you becoming the sports ambassador, global sports ambassador for Sierra Leone, what will you want to achieve with this new role?
With this new role, to achieve, like, to show a different type of country, because to be honest, we mostly been in the dark light, and this is what I want to. I don't want that anymore. I just don't want that, because yes, like, yeah, we've been through civil war, we had Ebola, but we survived. We are still there. So I don't want people to look up on us. No, I want people to see us as equal. That's what I want.
That's good. Before you go, Antonio, what will be your message to the people of Sierra Leone what should be their expectations for your foundation going forward?
Yeah, first of all, like at the end of the day, what I want to tell all the people is, as I said before, it's not a one-man show, definitely not. And that's why I did the foundation in Sierra Leone, to connect with the people. Mm-hmm. And we have to put ourselves in a role. We have to be role models, not only myself. And that's why I launched it there, so to have people on board so we can grow together. And first of all, but the most important thing is, like, I want to put my country in the limelight. I want to put my country up there. And but what people should know, this doesn't happen through day and night. It's a long process, and I believe in the process, and I am 100% like ready to go that way.
That was VOA's Peter Clotty speaking with Antonio Rodga, the newly appointed brand Global Sierra Leone football ambassador. Senegal's soccer team is being showered with gifts after winning the Africa Cup of Nations Championship. David Doyle has more.
Cash, prime real estate, and the highest honors in the land. Those are the gifts showered on Senegal's soccer team after they won their first ever Africa Cup of Nations. On Tuesday evening, hundreds in the capital Dakar lined the streets and avenues around the presidential palace, where President Macky Sall hosted a reception to thank the squad.
You have made us proud by making the name of Senegal resound around the planet. You have honored the nation. In return, the nation of which you are so proud owes you honors.
Sall said he was bestowing all members of Senegal's delegation with the country's top honor, making them Grand Officers of the National Order of the Lion. In addition, he said they would each receive a special bonus of 50 million CFA francs, or over $87,000 US, and a 200 square meter plot of land in the capital. Senegal's 4-2 victory over Egypt on penalties prompted an outpouring of joy in the West African country. Tens of thousands greeted their champions as they returned on Monday, and a ticker tape parade through the streets carried on into the early hours of the morning. Clara Frank, Washington.
Thank you, Clara. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.